It's late into the evening here at Shelbourne Park. We're up in the Oaks. We've just seen the semi-final draw for the Boylesports Irish Greyhound Derby. Needless to say, it's pretty hot, although there's one heat in particular that we'll speak about later on that, well, is red hot. They're still tidying up here as we speak. So we'll crack on, Kevin. We've said it the last 2 weeks, the Derby really came alive tonight. The Derby was well and truly alive before this evening, but so much happened tonight. We saw 3 female winners. We saw Ballymac Ariel, with the cloud all week, returning, showing brilliant form to win. Coming from behind the Explosive Boy. We saw Jack's Little Thing posting a stunning run. Singalong Sally back to her best. It was just one of those nights. Susie Sapphire again, electric in the early yards. Scooby Princess running a big race. Just heat on heat on heat. There was so much to talk about.
Yeah, look, after the first heat, I thought, well, at least we're safe enough for the interview afterwards, because we'll probably spend half it talking about this heat in particular, and then no matter what happens later on in the card, we have the highlight already, and it just the level just raised each and every run. Look, the ladies, we touched on it last week, they potentially could start to dominate. We saw that the first 3 heats, boom boom boom, and then Jack's Little Thing comes out and posts the best time of the night. So yeah, absolutely scintillating performances, much to look forward to and look back on.
Yeah, certainly much to look forward to, right? Plenty to look back on, and let's do that. The opening heat of the night, it was the one that garnished the most column inches, shall we say, during the week. It was the one people were talking about, for obvious enough reasons. But then the Ballymac Ariel news broke. She was under a cloud all week. I left Liam alone. You have to trust the man, and you knew that if she turned up tonight, she would be ready to race. And again, the man just proves that he's genius. She was ready to race. It was a sensational display. She didn't lead up tonight. Explosive Boy did lead around the corner. I thought that was that. Given the week that was in it, I thought Explosive Boy would hold her. But she just took off down the back straight. She went to the front. She tied up a little bit. Her clocks home haven't been as good as Explosive Boy's through this Derby. He made up that length or two that he has been making up around the clocks. Tonight we saw it in vision. Big run by the winner. Big run by the second. But firstly, Ballymac Ariel, what do you say about her? It was just an unbelievable run in what has been an unbelievable week.
Yeah, look, I was concerned for connections when that sort of news comes out. Nobody wanted to hear that, but I think in this case definitely silence was golden, and the fact that we didn't hear much more coming out of the camp, I was fairly confident that she would line up, and I knew if she lined up she'd bring her A game. There was absolutely no chance they would have risked her. Even if they thought she was only maybe 75%, I don't think they would have risked her. So I do think the fact that there wasn't much more coming out, I viewed personally as a positive. Whether that was right or wrong, we probably will never know. But she was brilliant again tonight. I think she's the fastest in training. She just has it everywhere. She really does. She's unbelievable. We spoke on this last week, saying we're probably doing her a disservice because everyone keeps talking about her being a bitch and what she's doing as a lady against the boys. And I genuinely believe that is doing her a disservice. I think you could put her up against any dog from any era, and she's got the ability to take any of them on. Tonight we saw the very best of her. She started reasonably well. She showed, I know you might watch the race just for what the race is worth, and maybe say, well, she maybe doesn't have dynamite early pace, but you got to understand that the dog on her inside, Explosive Boy, is doing 3:33 up and doing 16:98 to the third bend. So she matched him. She's got that explosive pace to the corner as well. But I questioned Explosive Boy coming into this for stamina, whether or not he'd want the trip. He answered that in the first round. He answered that in Tralee. You don't pick up dogs like him, and she picks him up into the third bend. Now, I will give Explosive Boy the benefit of the doubt. I think he checked at the third bend. I don't know whether he hit the railing, or he definitely seemed to just lose his stride or lose momentum.
At that stage, she is advancing fast though. She had gone to the front.
She did. But when you look at it, there was only half a length in it at the line. Did he lose a half a length? It's up for debate, but he definitely seemed to lose. Now maybe it was the fact that she was coming in on him, that could have done it too, and she took advantage of it. But she was bound to tie her up. There's no question she wouldn't have been galloped all week. There's no question she would have been probably on the lead all week. But you got to just sit back and admire these two dogs. You forget 16:98 to the third bend.
16:98 to the third bend is absolutely electrifying. But to consider that Ballymac Ariel didn't get the start, this week, she's behind him into the opening corner, and she's about a half length down at the point where that ray timing is stopped. You know, she gets to the front into the third bend. For her to be that close in 16.98 is pretty remarkable. It's also pretty remarkable Explosive Boy is doing that run 16.98, and I'm sure Pat Guilfoyle is just more than happy to be there. If Ballymac Ariel wasn't in this Derby, he'd still be a red hot favourite to win the Derby. He would have been unbeaten in the Derby thus far. As it is, he's been beaten by a superstar the last 2 nights, but you know, we saw tonight, we saw last week that he will explode from boxes. He gets in front in the Derby final. She mightn't just get the run behind him.
Yeah, and I was very worried about Explosive Boy this week with Deirdre Sidney in 3. I just didn't know that he was going to do 3:33, and it wouldn't have mattered how much Deirdre Sidney turned in. Like, you know how good Deirdre Sidney is, but like, he was gone. He was a length clear of him after 2 strides. It was quite remarkable to see him do what he did in the boxes. But you just got to enjoy this. Like, you really, maybe it's easier for me to enjoy them because I'm not connected to the 2 dogs. But like, I just literally sat back and enjoyed this race for what it was. It's 2 of arguably the best dogs we've seen running around Shelbourne Park, and they're going toe to toe. They're not asking for an inch, they're not giving an inch, and we get to see them do a battle again next week, and you throw in the likes of Jack's little thing in there as well. It's going to be incredible. But yeah, fantastic display by both of them. I hope Ariel has a great week. I hope Explosive Boy has a great week, and we get to see them do battle again next week.
Yeah, I think we hope that all 12 greyhounds have a good week, because we want to see the very best dogs being able to produce their very best form. All About Ted was third. We haven't even mentioned him yet. He's still there, banging contention. We know now in hindsight he's got the draw in the semi-finals. If all goes well for him in the opening 5 yards, he's going to be in the Derby final. And he could well be in trap 5 or 6. All About Ted was actually held up into the corner by Ballymac Ariel. The mere fact that he was on her shoulder would suggest that he's doing fair running himself. You know, he's beaten a half length and 2 lengths by 2 absolute superstars. The hell of a run by a dog that is really there with a massive chance in this year's Derby.
Yeah, I was really taken by this. That I said it to Peter over the far side straight after the race. I thought he was a sitting duck when Sydney turned maybe a length and a half off him. I know Sydney, people might say, well, he's renowned for his early pace, but Sydney is a warrior.
Yeah,
he's a warrior.
He has a desire to get there.
Exactly, and he's been around the corner, around the block. He's wrote the script. He knows exactly what he's at. He's a real wise behind the ear guy, and like, I really thought All About Ted was going to be under pressure, but he exploded down the back straight. I didn't think he'd do that when he was behind. I thought he might struggle the night that he didn't get to dictate the pace. He definitely didn't get to dictate it tonight, but he stuck to it. Like, he's still doing a savage running behind. We know what that dog can do to the corner. You're talking about Ariel maybe not getting to lead. I bet you his sectional is back. He didn't appear to the eye anyway at the trap nearly as well as he did last week. I'd say the boys are over the moon with him, and they've got the easier of the 2 semi-finals, but at the same time it's a semi-final of the Derby. They're not going to be easy, but I agree with you. I think if you were to look at the 12 semi-finalists going out here tonight with the performance that they put on the track, I'd say Peter Cronin and the lads will be absolutely over the moon.
Absolutely chuffed, like, no question about it. Jazz Toes, Galvarino went out. You know, their price would suggest they needed a bit of luck. It was too clean for them. You know, they needed traffic, they needed luck. Deirdre Sidney ran a remarkable race again. He's diving inwards. Explosive Boy has gone on him. You know, he wants to get to the fence. He runs his heart out. It just wasn't meant to be for him in the Irish Derby yet again, but he's still a classic winner. He'll always be remembered as the English Derby winner, and we haven't seen the last of him.
No, definitely not. And like, he needed to sort of hold Explosive Boy in the first 3 or 4 strides and pin him in. Explosive Boy was gone, and he just had to suffer then from there out.
Yeah. Moving on to the second heat, and Singalong Sally. We've been intimating that she's coming back. She's showing signs of a return to her very best form. Last week, it's hard to really gauge the form. She got done early, but then she got a glorious run at the third bend, but she qualifies. She's beaten 10 lengths in the second, but we spoke about how well she did actually run. Again, it's still hard to believe how well she did, or how to know how well she ran last week. She ran hard tonight. She was led in the early yards by Monrod Thunder, who to the eye seems to take an absolute flyer, but he's doing 3:43, 17:32 to the third bend, but she slipped onto the fence when he was gone, and once she did, you always get that sense off the second bend. She means it tonight. She showed real pace down into that third bend, took it up just after the third bend marker on the third bend, and goes on to win by a length and a half. Probably blew up a little bit again in the final strides, 29.70. I dare say there's still another 2 or 3 lengths there, no question.
I'd say there's well more than 2 or 3 in her. This lady's also in the easier, inverted commas, semi-final, and we have yet to see her take a start like she was doing in Limerick. Tonight, Monroe Thunder blew the lids out of it, moved to the middle of the track. She collides with No Green Dye early, and she's just battling. She's just gritty, isn't she? She never seems to give up. She should have been out of Derby 2 or 3 times this so far. She's in the semi-final. She's got a great draw, I think, in the final, and she has yet to ping. Like if Pat gets her to the final, gets her through next week, she will line up there 16 or 20 to 1, and
if you're in 2, you don't want her in 3.
No,
basically.
and even in 1, like if she gets the inside, like because her early pace in Limerick, she was flying to the corner with the likes of Explosive, probably a little bit off him maybe, but she was going to the bend with the best of them. She's going to the bend at the moment, 3rd, Midland, 4th most nights, and she's finding a way to keep qualifying, and she's showing all the guts, all the determination. There's a start in her. We haven't seen it yet. If Pat gets it over, she could be a player going forward at a big price.
Yeah, 29.70. Like, you know, when you see Monroe Thunder doing seemingly everything right to the opening line, and like he runs a little bit off the opening bend and maybe off the second a bit, but he's doing 17.32. Like he's a fair way behind the ones we've seen in the other heats, but. Again, a fine display by Singalong Sally. Monroe Thunder, he's only July.
Yeah.
He has a bit of age, but he's only his 9th start. He's turning into a really nice competition dog. You know, good early speed, pace down the back straight, stays on well. Just the dog that you can't rule out any night. And as we've said, he's probably in the better heat next week for his chances.
Yeah, and I said this to Graham over the far side earlier. He's a dog I knew nothing about coming into this derby. Really, he's a couple of nice performances up here. The 28.39 stands out. But he was even 5 to 1 in that race. It was an AO, but he's really caught me off guard. He's a lot more early than I was giving him credit for, and I did think during the week he was sort of overlooked. That heat tonight, on paper at least, didn't look like it much early. Droopy's Good was the one everyone seemed to latch onto, but that Monroe Thunder hadn't been getting the credit because he's flown to the bend a couple of nights in decent races, and he done it again tonight. It puts in perspective that he's, like, to the eye, he's doing a fantastic clock to the 3rd bend, and then you realise he's 5-6 lengths behind the other 2 in the previous heat. But that's just the level of ability they have. But this dog's a real nice prospect, and you're right, even though he's over 2 years of age, he's only 9 starts tonight, like, and I'm sure he'll go on to bigger and better things, and who knows, he could line up in the final of a derby yet.
Yeah, you know, even though there was plenty happening up front, you still had a chance off the final bend to keep an eye on the action in behind. There was drama for 3rd spot. Rural Star, it looked like it was going to be a fairy tale situation for him getting into the semi-finals. The same year that John O'Dwyer passed away, I know that Michael would have been watching on, and I'm sure Helen and Emily, who are down as the official owners, were certainly watching on. It looked for such a long way that he was going to qualify, and a dog that had yet to really get his starting boots in order. You were just hoping that he would make a start, and perhaps it was to come in the latter rounds, but just wasn't meant to be. He was 3rd down the back straight, but Gord Kelly Nestor ran a remarkable race, forced to check sides off the final bend, still gets up to chin him on the line and to earn his place in the semi-finals. Andy Murray is skipping home tonight.
Yeah, definitely, and he's a dog that we've said that probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, that Gord Kelly Nestor. More renowned, or more familiar for me anyway, for his early pace, but like he was a bad
just
fifth.
An all-rounder.
He was a bad 5th at the 2nd bend. He looks out, he finds traffic below at the bottom 2 bends, and how he gets up to qualify, it is remarkable. It just goes to show how well Andrew is doing with him, like to have him in the form he's in, and how well he's running, and he's clearly in a great bill of health, and he ran with great jest tonight, and he's there on merit because he had to do it the hard way tonight. I know some people could say sometimes you might get one that gets through at a big price but maybe got easier heats. He's had to do it really the hard way, and Rural Star, I echo it completely. It's a dog that was a little bit underwhelming coming into the derby. He hadn't shown the promise he'd shown in Clonmel, but he's finally starting to put the pieces together. Ran out of steam in the last 10 strides. He's chinned to get out. It's a very unfortunate for Connections, but I'm sure once they get over the disappointment of getting knocked out tonight, they will be a little bit happier to go, well, at least he's on the right track. He's coming back to that dog we saw earlier in the year in Clonmel, and if he comes back to that form, mark my words, he's an exceptionally fast dog.
Yeah, he's 18 starts now, but I think it's safe to say until recently he was still quite puppish.
Yeah.
But the penny seems to have dropped, and I think there's bigger days ahead with him. Droopy's Good missed the kick tonight, didn't show the same sort of early zip, and of course he's edging inwards, not getting that run. He produced a couple of fine displays in this derby.
Yeah.
He'll be remembered for it, but a step back and trip can be no harm to him, and with the laurels coming in a few years' time, I'd say he might be trialled in Cork very shortly indeed. No green dye, it's the end of the road for this, one of the great stories of this year's derby. He'd been running so well, just wasn't meant to be tonight.
No, and yeah, you're spot on with Droopy's Good. I'd imagine Owen will be going to Cork probably in the middle of this week because he looks a tailor-made dog for for the Laurels. He will have to buck up his trapping now. That's twice in a row now. He's just missed the kick, but that can happen. But yeah, he'll be a player down there. And no green die. Laura Earl and Sean Murphy have had such a run with this dog. He's turned up in great nick every night. He's picked up the pieces when he's needed to, and he's been a brilliant dog. And I'm sure they had a great buzz while it lasted. He'll be a lovely dog going forward for a couple of competitions. You'd imagine even the likes of a Ledger, he could go plenty of rounds in that.
Touch of Beach Avenue's about it.
It's similar, very similar.
You run him at 575, 600, 750. Run him any trip you want.
Yeah, brilliant competition dogs, and that's why I said like the Ledger in Limerick maybe later on in the year, you could definitely see him going a couple of rounds in there. Moving
on to the third heat. While in theory it was a relatively straightforward heat, there was nothing straightforward about it. Heat 3, it ended up being Susie Sapphire fast away, well away, early pace, led all. Nice and simple, but it doesn't describe what happened in this contest. Ballymac Wild never really got involved. Scooby Princess looked like she wasn't going to get involved. Swords Maestro and Ballymac Fairwood chased Susie Sapphire into the back straight, and it looked like it was going to be those three qualifying. Scooby Princess took off into the third bend. She flew up the home straight. I suppose it's no surprise. We've seen her do it so many times, but Susie Sapphire is still unbeaten in the Derby. She was the third female winner of the night. Didn't get a flyer, but that her acceleration in those first two strides was unbelievable. It was like something you'd see in Scale Electrics or something. She just shot up the inside. All of a sudden she finds herself 3 clear. You're asking yourself, how is she 3 clear? Ballymac Fairwood, goes up strongly in second spot. He's holding no prisoners into the corner. He's still 3 lengths behind her. It was a remarkable run to the third bend. 17:04. It's not her fastest. Nowhere's 3:41. We know she's at 3:33. She's definitely going to do sub 17 seconds one of these nights. She's in the semi-finals of Derby. She's in hot the next night, but she's going to be one of the ones to keep an eye on into that opening corner, despite the level of competition. Owen said on the interview afterwards that he thinks she cramped up a little bit. That probably would make a bit of sense. She didn't fly up the home straight. She holds on by a head from Scooby Princess. It was just a remarkable heat all round.
It was. It really was. Like, you look, she can trap with the best of them. She didn't trap as well tonight, but she's 8 spots slower off a sectional than Explosive Boy. But
I think he did he not do a 3:37? No,
3:33.
Oh, wow.
He done, and like she's only a handful of spots off him, and then she's only a handful of spots off to the third bend. So that'll tell you when she hits the ground, she's as quick as Explosive Boy and Ariel to the third bend. We know what she can do to the third bend. It was remarkable to watch her. You'd literally look at the race and say she must have been against a load of slow starting stairs that couldn't go to the bend, because within about 10 strides of leaving the boxes, she just goes, and she's 3 clear into the corner. And then you look down and you see Ballymac Fairwood in the race as well, who was in the English Derby.
Beaten English Derby favourite,
who was doing it from the front. Yeah. Like, it wasn't as if...
Oaks runner-up in Trap 3, it's Cork Oaks winner. Ballymac Wild, listen, we'd be here all day if we told you what he'd won. And then Swords Maestro, a dog who has tremendous pace and ability, and he's making a relatively good start by his standards.
Yeah, and he's done 3:41, and she just rags them into the bend. And we've spoken about how good on the bend she is. She takes lengths out of dogs on the bends. I have no doubt about it. If you put a clock on her, literally on the crest of the corner, when she gets to the far side, there's nothing alive that's going quicker than her on the bend. So she's a massive player. She might have tied up a small bit coming home, but she gets the 550 far better than I ever thought she would, watching her here in the Oaks and stuff like that. Look, she's proven it in the Puppy Oaks and the Oaks. This one loves competitions. She loves racing. She loves it when the competition goes through the rounds, and I'm sure that next week she'll produce a performance again. She's remarkable, and she's November. We say it every week. She's November.
We're starting to repeat ourselves.
It's silly, and you must say something though. For if Jack's little thing hadn't done the clock he did, Scooby Princess was the performance of the round. It was absolutely breathtaking. Where she was at the third bend, the running she does to come from behind the likes of Swords Maestro.
And in, out, it doesn't matter. If the gap is there, she'll take it.
She'd take it. Like, she went up almost in between Fairwood and Swords Maestro at the bottom 2 bends. She shoves him out of the way and just takes off again. I actually thought she was up. It was just ridiculous watching her and running. She's a superstar herself. I didn't think she'd much chance in this race. Just on the draw, I didn't give her much chance. But Jennifer has this one absolutely flying, and
we could have said that any week over the last 8 months.
Yeah, no, and she was for me, until Jack's little thing done the clock he did. She was, for me, arguably the performance of the round. It was incredible.
Ballymac Fairwood, just an encouraging again run this night. He's doing a similar enough clock to last week, but he showed plenty of zip. You know, like I know Susie Sapphire's 3 clear, but like she could be 3 clear of most of the dogs in training. It was a good run by him. He's only beaten a head and a half length in 29.48. It was a good run by him. I won't give up on him just yet, but he's going to need to find that pin.
Yeah, no, I was much more encouraged by him last week, and I am again. And this dog, since he came back from England, disappointed in the Champion Stakes. Even in the opening round against Priceless Jet, I was a little bit underwhelmed by him. I thought Priceless Jet could have beaten him if he'd have taken a different course once or twice. But the last 2 weeks in particular, I think he's taken a step forward. There's a ping in him. Whether or not he can go to the bend with explosive body in the likes of Susie Sapphire, we need to see that here in Shelbourne, but it's more encouraging than we were seeing earlier on. He's starting to build, he's really building, and Ballymac Matt built up pretty well coming into the Derby final, and we saw what happened with him a couple of years ago from the same kennel. So yeah, I wouldn't discount him again, and for such a young dog to be in the final of an English Derby already this year, and now in the semi-final of an Irish Derby, he's a fair one to look forward to. All right,
he's already overachieving. Swords Maestro, it looked like he was going to qualify down the back straight, but just Scooby Princess. You know, there's no accounting for that. I think Barbara Lowndes, Leonard Lowndes, Graham Holland will take plenty of encouragement of his run through this derby. They know he can trap. If they get that, they just, whatever, it's something clicks, something triggers with them. If he starts trapping, he's going to win a big one, or he's going to be a challenger in big ones. They have lots to look forward to with him.
Oh yeah, massively. Like he showed that ability in Tralee. We saw a glimpse of it here pre-Derby with a run he done, and then we saw him doing it earlier in the Derby, but he just still puts in that 1 or 2 missed breaks, and if he gets a little bit more consistent at the boxes, he has all the ability, he's all the tools there. Just put the pieces together. Similar to Priceless Jet when he started his career, he'd flash one night, he'd miss it the next time, inconsistently at the boxes, but with age he's gradually got a little bit better, and you'd be hoping the same. And Ballywack Wild tonight, maybe it was a little bit of age, I'm not sure. He just didn't fire the way he had been, but like, what can you say about him? He's an unbelievable greyhound, and I'm by no means am I saying that's the end of him, because I'd say he's that type of dog that the minute you think he's
just over 3 years of age. Like, there's still plenty in him, but yeah, it just wasn't meant to be tonight for him.
Yeah.
But if we stood here and started throwing virtues at him, like, we'd be here for another 25 minutes, and I think Vinny the cameraman is already getting sick of us. Moving on to the last of the 4 heats, and here you know, we've been speaking about him the last 2 weeks, and Graham might have been going too hard, and you know, he trained on this. You said it last week, like, there's none of this. You can't just pick and choose your moments. It was clear that the switch back to trap 4 was a big help. You know, I always said he'd win from any trap, but trap 4 was the night he did 29.10 was from trap 4, electric at boxes. Tonight, back into trap 4, boom, electric, straight as a die into the corner, shoots the bend. You know, it was almost like he sensed Carrigain North was on his inside. That last 30 yards into the bend, he just drove. He all of a sudden found, from being a half length in front, he found himself the guts of 2.5 lengths in front on the corner. It was just a really, really taking display from a dog that was basically telling the world, I'm a challenger in this year's Derby, and trust me, I'm going away. I'm not going away. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Like he'd been a little bit just on the clocks in the last 2 weeks. He'd been a little bit back. Well, obviously 2 weeks ago he missed a break completely. He was a little bit back on his clock last week, and to the eye you wouldn't have thought it, but if you literally didn't tell anyone the clock 29.51 last week, and you put the 2 races on, like last week he was brilliant to the eye again, and he does it again tonight. Like, he has got that explosive boy, Susie Sapphire, Ballymac Ariel pace to the corner, and he maintains it at the third bend. Like 17.03, I know people at home might be watching these going, well, there's 16.98 and there's 17.09 and there's 17.03. It's just the time that people do to the third bend.
We have 4 greyhounds tonight within, you know, 3 parts of length.
Yeah,
Explosive Boy, Ballymac Ariel, Susie Sapphire, and Jack's Little Thing. Like, that's extraordinary. You might have another dog doing 17 seconds all year.
That's what I was going to say. You could go back over the last 6 months and you probably haven't got 2 dogs in the last 6 months doing it to the third bend. It's remarkable. It really is. It's Pastan and Newen Taylor-esque from last year, and we thought that those 2 dogs were probably the best 2 dogs to the third bend we'd seen here, maybe since Premier Fantasy and the like. So it's just remarkable what these dogs are able to do, and he's as big a player as anything in the Derby. He's so strong. He's staying out the trip perfectly well. 29.23. When you saw the earlier heats at 29.37s, and you saw the very first race being won in 28.10 or something, you might have thought the track might have been going back a little bit. He just blew that theory asunder. It was a remarkable performance, and he's so consistent at the moment. That was the key coming into the Derby. It was the question I had about him. Can he be consistent at the boxes? 2 weeks ago he missed the break. It was an easier heat, but he got away with it. If that's his only missed break in this Derby, it's going to take a very good one to beat him.
Yeah, Carrigaline North ran a remarkable race in second spot. Again, he's only a puppy. I was told after racing tonight that he goes back to the Kilgowan line. You can have a guess who told me that. But he is closely related to Brodie's Magic. You know, there's plenty of dash there. He's not quite the same greyhound at the corner as Brodie's Magic, but he stays it better. Tonight, for him to hold off Price's Jet in the circumstances was a it was a hell of a run. Price's Jet tried to get by him a couple of times. He said, "No, you're not getting by." Shut the door. Price's Jet is his own worst enemy at times. Sometimes he tries to get inside when he just say wide to be fine. Wide, but Carrigaline North, October 19. Tommy, every year, we said it last week, we said it the previous week, every year he produces one that just goes that bit further than you expect him to do, and all of a sudden he's in the Derby semi-final and he's in the right heat.
And this dog, we spoke about him, was it round 1 or even in the second round, where he really impressed to the eye. He was very, very impressive at taking, but I didn't really know what he was. I didn't know, is he a good starter, is he good in the middle, is he a stayer? I hadn't really grasped him.
He's just an all-rounder.
He is, but the last 2 weeks he's shown far more early pace into the corner. Like, I know Jack's little thing gets away from him into the bend, but he sticks with him nearly just to the corner. If it was a 5-2-5, he'd have been on his inside at the corner. It was just that last 5 or 10 strides he just got
holding Jet into the corner.
And
if you hold Jet's line of form from the Champion Stakes final, where he's on their shoulder, nearly going to the front.
And he held him, and he was going ahead of him into the corner. So this dog he's really starting to impress me to the bend. He impressed me in the earlier rounds, what he was doing running on, and I think he is a bit of an all-rounder, but he's starting to find a little bit more of a burst into the bend. I'm not saying he'll do 333s or anything, but I think he could do a 340 and a 1710 or around that to the third bend on a good night if he does things right. And he's only an October pup. He's a earmarked profile dog that Thomas Buggy comes up here with at the Derby. Put this lad in your notebooks, because I promise you, with Touchwood, he stays sound and everything in one piece. This dog is a dog that will be competing at the highest level for the next 12 to 18 months.
Behind him, your own Price's Jet. Like I said, gets held up twice or 3 times in this run. Has the pace and the strength to keep going, because Skywalker Silla was off the last bend. I thought you were goosed, because he wasn't carrying momentum into Dom Straight. Got going again. He held on for third spot. You know, when I say held on, he's coming back at Carrigaline North, but he's holding on from the bitch who's flying. You've had a hard enough week with him, but he's still there. He's in hot. You're going to need to find that Champion Stakes type run.
Look, we like doing it the hard way. If it was easy, there mightn't be as much enjoyment. I know. Look, he's a brilliant dog, and like I said earlier on, we were talking. He was a little bit frustrating in his early career. Like, we were seeing it, we'd bring him into Kilkenny, and the sprints he would do in there would scare you, and then he'd come up and he falls out, and you're meant to look like an egot. So, but he's starting to be a bit more consistent. He didn't flash tonight away, but he showed good early, a reasonably a good start by his standards up to the corner. Look, he made a silly move. I don't know why he tried to go up the inside of Carrigaline North. He's done it in the past. If he'd have stayed wider, maybe he got around him. But look, it's all about qualifying, and he's still in the hat. Look,
you take third place again next week.
Too right. I don't know whether we'll get it. Look, it's an incredible race. It's probably going to be, without taking it away from the final, it's probably the best race, or as good a race as we're going to see in Shelbourne Park all year, with 6 dogs in it. I'm delighted to have one in it. I really am, and let the dust fall where it may, but he's in there with a chance. Look, the last 2 weeks have been a little bit less than ideal, but look, we just get on with it, and he's tough, and he's similar to Beach Avenue in that sense. He won't go down without a fight, and fingers crossed he can put up a good run next week. If it's good enough, fingers crossed.
We'll talk about the draw in a minute. The 3 that didn't qualify, Skywalker Silla, it's a shame for the connections. You know, she was really coming forward each and every round. Tonight just didn't happen for her early. She's storming home. We saw her just failing behind Price's Jet. Another big run from her. She's very lightly raced. They're going to win a big one with this one. You know, if they campaign her right and they'll pick their spots, they'll find a prize for her. And next year, because she's so lightly raced, you have to say, like, she's a real sort of Oaks contender. I prefer to see her in the middle. I'd like to go on record as saying that I prefer to see her in the middle. Bright Car Oak and Gunboat Showman, you know, they performed so admirably of the previous rounds to get this far, but like the opening heat with the 2 outsiders, their price dictated and suggested that they would need luck in running. As it happens, it was just too clean up front. The big guns put down their best foot forward, and that was to end their chances, but they ran very well in defeat, you know, and every night
Yeah, no, I'm sure Connections would have been over the moon for the enjoyment they got to get to this stage. Like, when you, especially Bryce O'Rourke, when you look at him, like, he's A1 and he made the quarter final of a derby. Like, it just doesn't happen. And I'm sure Connections, I think I said this on this last week, you wouldn't like to see him coming up alongside you in an A1 now, a back grader's A1 in the coming weeks, because it'll be a fair step down when he steps into that grade. But yeah, Skywalker Silla, Mark O'Donovan's as good a man as I've seen a place in greyhounds. You'd see him and you question why he turns down there, but look at the amount of finals he's won this year. I'm sure they'll campaign her correctly, and yeah, you'll be seeing her on the winners roster a couple of times if she stays healthy in the next couple of weeks or months.
Yeah. Moving on, because we do have to look at the draw. We won't spend too much time on it, but that's what Talking Dogs on Monday is for. We'll dissect it, but we have to start with the second heat. Susie Sapphire, Ballymac Fairway, Explosive Boy, Ballymac Ariel a middle seed, Jack's Little Thing a middle seed, and Price's Jet a wide seed. First thing that struck me was that Ballymac Ariel and Jack's Little Thing, if you offered both connections a swap, they'd take it. Yeah. 5 and 4, 4 and 5. That could play a part in proceedings here. 4 and 5 clash in the opening yards. All of a sudden we know Explosive Boy and Susie Sapphire are going to be absolutely hammering up the inside. It's important for Price's Jet to get a flyer, maybe get across Fair or Ariel and Jack's Little Thing if they clash. Yeah,
look, it's going to be incredible. It really is. Like, you look at the jewels all around, and you're obviously drawn to Susie and Explosive Boy going up on the inside, and you'll have Jack's Little Thing and Ariel in the middle to wide. Look, I don't think Price's Jet's going to be, if they all trap and wing it, I don't think Cork will be able to go stride for stride with him to the corner, but that doesn't necessarily mean he can't qualify. It's going to be...
What's going to lead?
If I had to guess, I would go with Explosive Boy.
Over Susie?
I do. I think he'll out-trap her. I think she'll be flying up his inside. It depends what he does at the corner. I think he'll definitely be in front of her halfway to the corner. It's going to be up to him whether he shuts the door on her. Would you do you think?
I haven't a clue.
No, you have. Come on, people are tuning in not to hear you.
This is absolutely. I think it's going to be a crazy race to the corner. Yeah. I hope that Ariel and Jack go straight, and they probably will go relatively straight into the corner.
She might step more to the right than him stepping. It'd
be interesting if Jack's Little Thing took one of his flyers.
Yeah.
If he does his 3:36, Susie Sapphire does a 3:38, and Explosive Boy does a 3:36, 3:38. It could be, I tell you what, Ballymac Fairway just might find himself in a lovely pitch on the inside in behind dogs. Yeah. You never know.
That's what
it's one of those heats where anything could happen.
Yeah, I've no doubt that halfway to the line, to the corner, Susie's the quickest. I think if she's level with them halfway to the corner, she'll be in front of by the bend. But I think Explosive Boy could out-trap her, which could be the key. What do you make favourite in the heat? I'd say Explosive Boy will still be favourite. I think he'd probably be favourite.
Okay.
What would you say?
I haven't a clue.
You can't keep saying I haven't a clue.
It's my job to dissect the form during the week.
I think
I'm going to say that I think Explosive Boy will be... when I say marginal favourite, I mean like that's marginal favourite. Yeah. But I think it'll be, I think it'll be 2-1, 9-4 the field. Moving on, the opening heat: Monrod Thunder, Scooby Princess, Singalong Sally, Carrigain North, Gord Kelly Nestor, and All About Ted. All About Ted looks to have the draw if he makes a start. Scooby Princess and Singalong Sally, the two ladies, they're going to clash in those opening strides, you would imagine. Although Singalong Sally, if she is going to take a flyer, there's every chance it could happen from trap 3. If she takes a flyer, all of a sudden things could get quite open, and Monrod Thunder up the inside, he'll be looking to go out. It could get tight.
It does. The more you talk about it, the more you say All About Ted has got an absolute hummer of a draw there in 6. Gord Kelly Nestor's got a brilliant draw as well. Scooby, I've thought tonight her draw could go again her, and last week even though it won, it could go again her. She put egg in my face, so I'm not going to go again her on the draw. Singalong Sally, there's a ping in her. Whether it comes next week, it has the potential. She'll need to, because Monrod Thunder will edge outwards. So, All About Ted would be favoured, no doubt about it in that race. Gord Kelly Nestor's a chance of qualifying too. Carrigain North, we've not even mentioned it. They're two brilliant semi-finals for different reasons, but yeah, like, just bring it on. Can't wait.
If I offered you swap into the opening heat, do you take it though?
No, I'll stick in with all the big guns. I'll stick in with all the big guns and take them all on.
Yeah. Sitting on the fence and all that. He knows he can't get a swap, so he said no. Listen, that's it. We could stay here all day and all night talking about the semi-finals that will happen here at Shelbourne Park next Saturday night. All I can tell you is There's a Derby winner amongst the 12, but we're no closer to knowing exactly what it is. It's a great Derby, a truly remarkable Greyhound Derby. Two unbelievable semi-finals to look forward to next week. Join us then.